When pondering the power dynamics of Middle-earth, one cannot help but fixate on the enigmatic and terrifying figure of Sauron, juxtaposed against the Istari wizards, the most prominent being Gandalf, Saruman, and Radagast. Sauron, the Dark Lord of Mordor, wielded immense influence as Morgoth's lieutenant during the First Age, and later as an independent entity. Yet the Istari, sent by the Valar to oppose his dominion, were also Maiar like Sauron, albeit constrained by mortal forms. To answer the question of who was more powerful, we must dissect their origins, roles, and how their power manifested in Middle-earth. Sauron's origins lie in the primordial days of creation, as a Maya of Ole, the Vala, associated with crafting and knowledge. He was initially a being of great skill and vision, revered for his ability to forge and shape. However, his lust for order, combined with his desire for dominion, led him into Morgoth's service during the First Age. This service would shape his identity as a master manipulator and deceiver. The crafting of the One Ring in the Second Age, a singular artifact capable of dominating the other rings of power, stands as a testament to his unmatched cunning and potency in subjugation. In contrast, the Istari arrived in Middle-earth in the Third Age, sent by the Valar with a singular mission: to inspire and guide the free peoples against Sauron's resurgence. They were bound by a unique restriction, encapsulated in letter 156 of Tolkien's correspondence. Their Maiar essence was clothed in mortal flesh, forbidding them from directly wielding their celestial might. Instead, their strength was measured through wisdom, persuasion, and the nurturing of resistance, rather than the exercise of sheer force. The distinctions in their roles are stark. Sauron aimed to dominate. His power was active, aggressive, and centralized through the One Ring. By contrast, the Istari were constrained, their purpose rooted in restraint. Even Saruman, the greatest among them in knowledge, fell not through weakness but ambition, attempting to emulate Sauron's path rather than adhere to the Valar's directives. This divergence is epitomized in Gandalf's refusal to take the One Ring from Frodo, acknowledging that its power would corrupt even his noble intentions, a profound moment in the Fellowship of the Ring, 1954. One cannot overlook the limitations imposed upon the Istari, which starkly contrast with Sauron's unchecked ambition. Sauron could manifest his power freely, corrupting Numenor and rallying armies with his sheer presence, while the Istari relied on mortal allies and indirect influence. Gandalf's revival as Gandalf the White after the Balrog's defeat in the Two Towers, 1954, is perhaps the clearest instance of a direct intervention from the Valar, yet even this was a carefully calculated act, reinforcing his role as a steward, not a conqueror. By examining their roles, it becomes evident that Sauron's power was far more overt and encompassing, but the Istari were endowed with a different kind of strength, one of subtlety and moral fortitude. Their restrictions highlight the moral underpinning of Middle-earth's narrative, a world where power's true measure lies not in dominance, but in service. To further explore this fascinating comparison, it's essential to delve into the broader implications of their powers and limitations within Middle-earth's cosmological framework. Sauron's power derived largely from his ability to manipulate others and bend them to his will, which is exemplified by his creation of the One Ring. The ring not only amplified his inherent strength, but also acted as a tether, spreading his dominion across Middle-earth. It embodied his essence, allowing him to extend his will far beyond his physical form, as seen during the War of the Ring. The One Ring also reveals a critical vulnerability in Sauron's power, his reliance on external mechanisms for domination. This reliance was both a strength and a flaw. While it enabled him to corrupt and control powerful individuals like the Nazgûl, and influenced even the free peoples, such as Boromir and Saruman, It also concentrated his essence into a single, destroyable object. This was a marked departure from Morgoth, who dispersed his might into the very fabric of Arda itself, a decision that rendered him irreversibly diminished but far less vulnerable. In comparison, the Istari's power, while less overt, was resilient in its design. Each member of the Order, Gandalf, Saruman, Radagast, and the lesser-known Blue Wizards, Alatar and Palian, was sent to embody specific virtues necessary to counter Sauron's rise. Gandalf, in particular, exemplified wisdom, humility, and perseverance. His strength was drawn from alliances, trust, and inspiration, rather than domination. In this sense, Gandalf's power was relational, flourishing through cooperation rather than subjugation. This distinction raises profound questions about the nature of power itself. Sauron's dominion was rooted in fear and control, mirroring Morgoth's tyranny. Yet it lacked the endurance of Gandalf's influence. Even in moments of apparent weakness, such as Gandalf's imprisonment in Orthanc, or his death in the depths of Moria, his influence persisted through others who carried forth his mission. Aragorn, Frodo, and the Fellowship. This is echoed in Tolkien's letters, where he underscores Gandalf's role as an enabler of hope and resilience, rather than a wielder of direct force, as mentioned in Letter 156. Another pivotal aspect lies in how both Sauron and the Istari were perceived by others. Sauron's presence was suffocating, even in absence. The Eye of Sauron symbolized his unrelenting gaze, a manifestation of fear that paralyzed his enemies. On the other hand, Gandalf's presence often invigorated hope. The lighting of the beacons of Gondor, the rallying of Rohan at Helm's Deep, and even his guidance of Frodo and Sam through despair exemplified this uplifting influence. However, Saruman's fall into treachery serves as a stark reminder of the Istari's susceptibility to corruption. Unlike Sauron, who was intrinsically malevolent, Saruman's descent was gradual, a cautionary tale of hubris and the perils of seeking power for its own sake. Saruman mirrors Sauron in many ways, but lacks the latter's singular, all-encompassing ambition. This contrast further illuminates the unique dimensions of power each figure wielded. The timeline of events also provides critical insight into the broader power dynamics between Sauron and the Istari. Sauron's presence spans millennia, from his days as Morgoth's lieutenant in the First Age to his eventual defeat in the Third. Over these ages, his strategies evolved, but consistently revolved around the corruption and manipulation of others. For example, during the Second Age, he deceived the elves of Eregion into crafting the Rings of Power. His initial guise as Anatar, the Lord of Gifts, demonstrates his skill at exploiting trust, a stark contrast to the Istari, whose mission was built on fostering trust among the Free Peoples. The Istari, by comparison, appeared in the Third Age, around 1000, at a time when Sauron was regaining strength in Dol Guldur. Their arrival marked a shift in strategy by the Valar. Rather than confronting Sauron with divine might, they sought to empower Middle-earth's inhabitants to resist him. This approach, while less direct, reflects the Valar's evolving understanding of power, dominance through sheer force. As seen in the War of Wraths, had not eradicated evil. Instead, it left Arda fractured, with lingering shadows of Morgoth's malice manifesting in successors like Sauron. By choosing mortal forms, the Istari accepted limitations that mirrored the struggles of those they were sent to aid. This self-imposed restraint was not a weakness but a testament to their understanding of power's moral dimension. As Tolkien emphasized in the Silmarillion, unchecked power, no matter how noble its intention, inevitably corrupts. Gandalf, the wisest among the Istari, recognized this truth and thus wielded his influence with humility. His refusal to take the One Ring from Frodo epitomizes this restraint. With that power, I should have power too great and terrible, and over me, the ring would gain a power still greater and more deadly, Gandalf warns. Sauron, in contrast, was defined by his inability to comprehend this restraint. For him, power was an end unto itself, leading him to place blind faith in the One Ring. His downfall was not merely a consequence of Frodo's courage or Gollum's intervention, but of his own hubris. The notion that anyone would willingly destroy such a source of power was incomprehensible to him. This blindness highlights a critical philosophical underpinning of Middle-earth. Evil, in its arrogance, often underestimates the resilience and moral fortitude of its opposition. Another illuminating contrast arises in their respective approaches to alliances. Sauron's alliances, whether with the Númenóreans, orcs, or men like the Haradrim and Esterlings, were built on coercion and exploitation. These relationships were transactional, devoid of genuine loyalty. The Istari, however, cultivated bonds through mutual respect and shared purpose. The Fellowship itself is a microcosm of this ideal, uniting diverse races in a common cause despite historical enmities. Finally, consider their legacies. Sauron's influence, while immense, was ultimately transient. His power waned irreparably with the destruction of the One Ring, and his spirit became a shadow, unable to harm the world further. The Istari, particularly Gandalf, left behind a legacy of unity and hope, ensuring that Middle-earth could endure beyond their tenure. As we conclude this exploration, it's vital to examine the symbolic underpinnings of Sauron and the Istari within Tolkien's legendarium. Sauron represents the quintessential tyrant, obsessed with control, blind to the nuances of moral choice, and ultimately consumed by his own designs. His power was formidable, but it was also brittle, tied so completely to his creations that their destruction meant his ruin. This brittle nature underscores a recurring theme in Tolkien's work: the inherent instability of evil, which fractures and diminishes even as it appears to dominate. In contrast, the Istari symbolize an entirely different form of power, one rooted in wisdom, collaboration, and selflessness. Gandalf especially epitomizes the kind of leadership Tolkien admired: a guide rather than a ruler, a source of strength that empowers others to rise to their potential. This is reflected in his relationships, particularly with Frodo, Aragorn, and Theoden, where his counsel and encouragement enable them to confront their fears and fulfill their destinies. Gandalf's greatest strength was his ability to lead by example, not by decree. The narrative of the Istari also offers a commentary on failure and redemption. Saruman's fall is a powerful reminder of the perils of pride and the corrupting nature of unchecked ambition. His arc mirrors that of Sauron in many ways, particularly in his desire to control through force. However, unlike Sauron, who was irredeemable by choice, Saruman's potential for repentance lingers until his tragic end in the Shire. This juxtaposition between the two characters underscores Tolkien's belief in the possibility of redemption, even for those who stray far from the light. On the other hand, Gandalf's transformation into Gandalf the White following his death in Moria highlights the redemptive power of perseverance and faith. This rebirth is not merely a return to life, but an elevation of purpose, allowing him to fulfill his mission with greater clarity and authority. This moment serves as a counterpoint to Sauron's narrative, emphasizing that true power lies in renewal and service rather than domination. Perhaps the most striking difference between Sauron and the Istari lies in their impact on Middle-earth's peoples. Sauron's legacy is one of fear, destruction, and division. Even his most loyal servants, the Nazgûl, are bound to him by terror rather than genuine allegiance. The Istari, by contrast, leave behind a legacy of hope and resilience. The bonds they forged among the free peoples endure, providing a foundation for the peace and renewal that follow Sauron's defeat. In the end, the question of who was more powerful, Sauron or the Istari, depends on how one defines power. If measured by raw might and the ability to impose one's will, Sauron's dominance is undeniable. Yet, if power is defined by the ability to inspire, unite, and endure, the Istari, and Gandalf in particular, emerge as the true victors. Their restraint and wisdom ensured that Middle-earth's freedom was preserved, proving that power tempered by humility is far more enduring than power wielded through fear. This juxtaposition serves as a profound meditation on the nature of power itself, a central theme not only in Middle-earth, but in the timeless struggles of all who seek to balance strength with virtue. Through Sauron and the Istari, Tolkien offers a poignant reminder that the greatest victories are not those won through domination, but through unity and sacrifice.